Hello everybody, welcome to Ageless Rock, a channel for those with megalithic lands to see megalithic sites from a different perspective. Today, we are going to visit Pasargade archaeological site in Iran. Despite what we think it is, this monument is actually shrouded in mystery that has no real answer. Pasargade is said to be the capital of Achaemenid Empire, or more famously known as the Persian Empire. It was founded by Cyrus the Great in 550 BC, but was defeated by Alexander the Great in 330 BC. Pasargade is a big archaeological site with several historical monuments which are worth looking into with megalithic lens. Let's start with the tomb of Cyrus the Great. In the entire archaeological site, this tomb is the biggest attraction. This megaton stone block pyramid was first noticed and identified by an Italian explorer and ambassador by the name Joseph Barbaro in 15th century. Then, in 17th century, a German explorer by the name Johann Albrecht made note of this site. They both identified this monument as Tomb of Madre Suleiman, which means Mother of Solomon's Tomb. According to tradition, during the rise of the Islamic conquest, the Muslims wanted to destroy this monument. However, the locals told the Muslim invaders that this is a tomb of King Solomon's mother. As a result, this monument was spared from destruction. In the Bible, King Solomon's mother is Bathsheba. I wonder why they don't just call this Tomb of Bathsheba. That would make this tomb about 3,000 years old. Also, take note that according to this drawing, there are cylinders among the ruins. This place looked like it was hit by an earthquake and smaller materials were probably looted for personal use. In the 19th century, a British diplomat by the name James Justinian Morier identified this monument as Tomb of Cyrus the Great. That means it would have been about 2,500 years old. But that is because Europeans look back in history to give credit to the greatest king for the greatest monument. In reality, King Cyrus has no way of knowing he will be the greatest king or not for the next 2,500 years. If he does, his mausoleum monument would have been at least 10 times bigger. If there is a larger megalithic pyramid somewhere in Iran, archaeologists will definitely link that to King Cyrus the Great. Some believe it belongs to Suleiman ibn Abdul al-Malik, who was an 8th century caliph of the Umayyad Caliphate. If that is true in the minds of mainstream, we would have been told this is about 1,300 years old. So based on what we believed so far, these megalithic blocks stacked in pyramidal shape with a roof structure on top are possibly 3,000 years old, or 2,500 years old, or 1,300 years old. These limestone blocks have been around for a long time. We do not know where is the quarry. How can someone build an empire so vast, but the locals need the Europeans to come and tell them where their king was buried? I would imagine it should be so hard to forget what this monument is for if the ancient Persians actually quarried from an unknown bedrock, dragged to this location, dressed them into perfect fitting pieces as large as they possibly can, and stacked them into pyramidal structure which we believe it is a tomb. This monument is 11 meters tall from base to the roof. It is 12.3 meters wide and 13.35 meters deep. It is said that the entrance is so narrow, even a slender person would have difficulty trying to get in. It is described as an entrance facing northwest with an opening 2 feet 10 inches wide. The height of the entrance is exactly 4 feet. With the given dimensions and a rough estimate, this megalithic monument is about 602 cubic meters in volume. When standing in front of the structure, it is definitely awe-inspiring, but I cannot say the same when compared to other great leaders of ancient world. If this monument is placed next to Khufu's pyramid, it will be so tiny it might be identified as a tomb for someone a lot less significant in Egyptian history. In terms of construction, they are both very much the same. They are huge blocks dressed and stacked without mortar. Here are some fun facts. Khufu's pyramid is 2.6 million cubic meters in volume and is believed to have been completed in 20 years. Tomb of Cyrus the Great is only 0.02% in terms of volume. That means if Persians were to outsource the job to ancient Egyptians, Cyrus the Great would have his tomb completed in about 1.5 days. The top of the pyramid is basically blocks of stone stacked like a house with roof. It is described as having 4 layers. The first layer forms the side of the entrance. The second serves as lintels. The third serves as a projecting cornice. The fourth layer is the pediment and sloping roof. The entrance is basically made up of 2 huge blocks of stones. It is described as 16 feet 10 inches wide. The stones are 5 feet thick from inside wall to the outside wall. The entire rectangular superstructure sits on only 2 huge slabs. This is an amazing feat which makes me wonder why would ancient Persians be obsessed with megaton blocks for construction for a tomb, but their own properties are largely hand-sized bricks and mud. According to Sir Robert Potter, this impressive limestone pyramid has a chamber measuring 7 feet wide, 8 feet high and 10 feet long. The early account by Aristobulus of Cassandria states that King Cyrus was buried in a golden sarcophagus. Several items were mentioned, among them was a couch with golden feet. It was already looted when Alexander the Great visited this site. Under the roof was also said to have a coffin with a dead body which has now turned to dust. Personally, I am not sure if I can see this as a tomb because it has an opening, which means it is for regular access. The tomb of Cyrus the Great is also noted for its very close proximity in shape and measurements to tomb of Alyattes, the king of Lydia. This colossal tumulus of Alyattes measures approximately 360 meters in diameter. It is located on the east of Turkey. It is another megalithic site for another day. If these two were meant to be tombs, it would have been blocked by huge stones so that no one can break in. The stolen sarcophagus is said to have an inscription in Old Persian that says, quote, "Passerby, I am Cyrus, who founded the Persian Empire and was king of Asia. Grudge me not, therefore, this monument." Unquote. But since the sarcophagus was never found, this information is not used to prove it belonged to Cyrus. According to Sir Robert Potter, he wrote that he searched everywhere for some trace of a cuneiform inscription, but in vain. So that means this monument was as mysterious as Khufu's pyramid because they don't have any inscription, which is extremely odd. How hard is it to write something on stone for someone who is king of kings, especially when the entire structure was made of megaton blocks? Then he continued, quote, "The place where most like such a one would have been, if any existed within the tomb, is on the right of the entrance, where it has probably been obliterated to make room for the present open scroll in the Saracenic taste." Unquote. So believe it or not, who actually gets to own this as a tomb remains debatable. To make matter even more mysterious, The King of Kings, Cyrus the Great, has a great-great-grandfather by the name Achaemenes, who is said to be the progenitor of Achaemenid dynasty. But his story is so vague, historians are cautious about his validity. It is written in fine print that it is believed Achaemenes was a mythical character. This photo shows that it was in a state of abandonment when Europeans first set their eyes on this monument. The locals definitely knew it was here since writing was invented. For them to know nothing and waited a few millennia for Europeans to tell them what happened here is highly unlikely. The top of the roof is actually an impressive construction where only two pieces of stone blocks were dragged and placed on top. Each block measures 6 meters long by 3 meters wide and half meter thick. But a seed fell on top of the roof and a tree grew over time shows neglect by the Persians and didn't think much of it as something they are fully aware of. To me, a structure like this with an entrance and surrounded by pillars looks more like a temple than a tomb. It is said that the Magi of Zoroastrian devotees of Persia were guarding this place religiously with daily provisions of sheep, corn, and wine. Only females were allowed to enter this structure shows that there were some religious rituals at this site as temple rather than a place for the dead. In reality, if you say this was a temple, you can come with your offerings. If you say this is a tomb, you can be proud of Cyrus the Great and wonder why his body can be stolen without breaking in. If you say this megalithic structure was constructed by the unknown ancient builders, you can say anything just to make the mainstream archaeologists angry. This monument is very much open for new ideas of what it was actually for. If you say this monument was built by the mysterious ancient builders, then you could be more right than wrong. You only need to look for the mysterious rectangular holes like this one in the photo. They appear everywhere at megalithic sites around the world. This mysterious rectangular hole is in fact hidden in plain sight as you approach the entrance. There is one on the top right corner of the entrance. At the back of the structure, you can also see one on the third layer of the pyramid. Even more bizarre is that the entire block is probably one piece on the back of the tomb, because the vertical lines are cracks rather than two pieces placed side by side. Based on this old photo, you can see that there is a gateway to the site and the monument was surrounded by pillars. One of the pillars has a rectangular hole. I think there are plenty more if you snoop around this site when photography was still in black and white. Another construction feature at this site is the use of metal clamps on molds shaped of a dove tail. This is a questionable feature of the mysterious megalithic culture as a way to hold two blocks of stones which is already very stable on its own due to the weight and size of each block. Human nature typically don't plan to build houses or tombs to last 1000 years, even much less for ancient people. So if two blocks of stones can remain stable, is already exceeding the need of ancient people by 1000 times. In the Bible, Isaiah chapter 45 verse 1 says, "This is what the Lord says to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I take hold of, to subdue nations before him, and to strip kings of their armor, to open doors before him, so that gates will not be shut." The revelation came to pass when King Cyrus freed the Jews from the Babylonians. In 1928, a Jewish archaeologist by the name Ernest Herzfeld was the first to excavate Pasargadae. Sir Oriel Stein, another Jewish archaeologist, completed this site plan in 1934. Looks like this site has as much Jewish history as Persian. At this point, I am more inclined to believe that we know nothing about this structure and what we believe so far is flawed by the need to fit a certain narrative. Cyrus the Great was a great king, and there should be no reason we have to guess where he was buried. I am very sure if all the oral traditions, religious practices, and stories we shrug off as myths and legends are kept alive, we will have a very different perspective of this site. Cyrus the Great might not be even in the picture. I think this site wasn't restored to its original state as best as it should be. With the missing pillars and gates, this might be an astronomical calendar with religious background. The 6 pillars on each side are most likely some kind of markers rather than artistic architectural design. The interior has a chamber with a story of a missing coffin which cannot be verified. I think there are so many blanks in a sentence we simply cannot conclude confidently that this megalithic monument was created for Cyrus the Great. If you wear megalithic lens and see this world objectively, it might give you a perspective that our history is upside down. We live in a bubble and accept stories that we feel is good. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this short presentation on Tomb of Cyrus the Great. See you in the next video and have a wonderful day. This is Berniong signing out. Khoda Hafez.